An incumbent Republican senator in office for 24 years, having raised $400 million for his party in that period, was recently defeated in a primary just a few days ago by a MAGA candidate endorsed by Donald J. Trump. Yes, Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, beat John Cornyn, the sitting Texas senior senator, in the Republican Senate primary in Texas last month in a landslide. And Ken Paxton is, well, perhaps the epitome of MAGA crookedness. I mean, he's too scandal-plagued for even Fox.
Well, what are you going to do about your own record and your own perception? The Wall Street Journal describes you as scandal-plagued.
The reality is they could say the same thing about Donald Trump.
Yes, exactly. He is Trumpism. He is MAGA personified. Impeachment? Check. Corruption? Check. Adultery? Check. Pedophile protector? Check. Election denial? Check. That's Ken Paxton, perhaps the single most loathsome candidate running for the Senate in November. And I've got the receipts, so let's go through the list. Number 1, impeachment. Paxton, like Trump, was impeached. He was impeached on all 20 articles of impeachment filed against him, which covered everything from the disregard of his official duties to making false statements in official records, constitutional bribery, obstruction of justice, abuse of public trust, dereliction of duty. The list goes on. And a clear majority of Republican members in the Texas House of Representatives voted to impeach him. Luckily for Paxton, like Trump, there wasn't a 2/3 majority in the Texas Senate to convict him. But just listen to what a top Republican lawmaker and former ally of Paxton said about him during that impeachment.
We each took an oath of office. Attorney General Paxton took an oath of office. He violated that oath. He put the interest of himself above the laws of the state of Texas.
Number 2, corruption. That's what led to his impeachment. Where to begin with Ken Paxton's corruption? Let me take you back to 2006. As a member of the Texas House, Paxton voted on state spending bills that allocated millions of dollars to contracts with companies like WatchGuard Video, which supplied patrol cameras to police officers, a company which Paxton also just so happened to be personally invested in. He failed to disclose this to the Texas Ethics Commission, claiming he had no knowledge of the company's state contracts. That's despite selling some of his shares just 3 months after the company announced its net earnings increased by 250%. But that apparently wasn't a wake-up call for Paxton, because in 2011 he allegedly began encouraging Texas legislators to invest in technology company Servergy without mentioning the fact that he was making a commission. The company was founded by Paxton donor Bill Mapp, who was later charged by the SEC in 2016 for having misled his investors. Paxton himself was indicted in the case in the summer of 2015 and pleaded not guilty. The case stalled for 9 years, during which he was re-elected twice as Attorney General. He finally reached a deal in 2024, agreeing to pay roughly $300,000 in restitution and complete 100 hours of community service, a slap on the wrist at best. While that case was stalling, a group of conservative attorneys who worked in Paxton's office reported him, their boss, to the FBI in October of 2020, accusing him of bribery and abuse of office. That's what brings us to his impeachment trial in 2023. Paxton staff claimed that he misused his office to help out his pal and donor, Nate Paul, a major real estate developer in Texas. They alleged that Paxton helped investigate and harass Paul's business rivals, delay foreclosure sales of his properties, and procure confidential records about police investigations into him. At least 4 of the attorneys who blew the whistle were fired, and they sued him for violating the Texas Whistleblower Act. Paxton eventually issued an apology and was ordered to pay $6.6 million in a settlement. But the catch? The payout had to come out of state funds, which would require the legislature's approval. After Paxton's impeachment acquittal, the case eventually made its way to the DOJ, but in the final weeks of Joe Biden's presidency, it was quietly, bizarrely dropped. How's that for accountability? Look, Ken Paxton is the most corrupt guy out there. Don't take my word for it. Listen to former MAGA Republican congressman from Texas, Louis Gohmert.
From all the things I know, I think he's the most corrupt attorney general we've had in my lifetime.
Number 3, adultery. The Republican Party, they like to talk a big game about God and Christianity and family values, and are busy right now attacking Democratic candidate for the Senate, James Tallarico, for once describing God as non-binary. Meanwhile, their candidate, Ken Paxton, has just blown straight through the seventh commandment. Last year, his wife, Angela Paxton, literally posted on Twitter that she had filed for divorce on biblical grounds, alleging the continuation of an affair with a mistress that Paxton, according to the Texas Tribune, had claimed to his wife and to his staff was over in 2018. Remember Paxton's friend, Nate Paul? Well, in return for Paxton's help, Paul allegedly renovated Paxton's home and helped him cover up his affair with a former Senate staffer. He gave her a job at his company, and according to Texas House investigators, Paxton and Paul even created an Uber account under the alias Dave P. They created it so Paxton could also meet his mistress undetected. So look, he's a disgusting human being. Again, don't take my word for it. The communications director for the National Republican Senatorial Committee said last year what Ken Paxton has put his family through is truly repulsive and disgusting. No one should have to endure what Angela Paxton has, and we pray for her as she chooses to stand up for herself and her family during this difficult time. That statement has now been deleted. You see, they're not praying for her anymore, they're campaigning for him. Number 4, he's a pedophile protector. Yes, you heard that right. Pedophile protector. Ken Paxton, who has repeatedly pointed the finger at other AGs for being too soft on crime, seemingly has a soft spot for pedophiles. Last year, a Waco man named Adam Dean Hoffman stood trial on charges of continuous sexual abuse of a young child, which is a first-degree felony with a sentence of up to life in prison. The case was mishandled, to be fair, well before Paxton's office became involved, resulting in a hung jury. The jurors could not reach a verdict, and the boy understandably did not want to testify for a second time. So Paxton, the AG, had to either dismiss the case or offer a plea deal. He went with the latter, but it was just as good as dismissing the case because he dropped the felony charge of continuous sexual abuse of a young child and allowed Hoffman instead to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanors. And the sentence? Just 1 day in prison. 1 singular day, that's what Paxton offered. And despite legally admitting to abusing a child, Hoffman didn't have to register as a sex offender either. It was one hell of a sweetheart deal, and the judge presiding over the case couldn't believe it either. According to a court transcript, Judge Roy Sparkman said, 1 day? Seriously? Someone has to sell me on the wisdom of it. He, the judge, later pushed for a 60-day sentence, which Hoffman's lawyers agreed to. And despite the public outrage, Paxton's office reiterated that the plea deal was made entirely in the best interest of the child involved. Yeah, sure. Number 5, election denial. Ken Paxton is a hardcore 2020 election denier. He's the guy who filed Texas versus Pennsylvania at the Supreme Court in December 2020, trying to get the results of Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, and Wisconsin all thrown out as fraudulent. A ludicrous case. The conservative-dominated Supreme Court flatly rejected it 4 days later, pointing out that Texas, or Paxton, had no standing bringing this case against the election rules and results of other states. But ever loyal to Trump, Paxton did not give up. He turned up in Washington, D.C. on January the 6th, 2021, to speak at Donald Trump's Stop the Steal rally.
Because we're here today, the message goes on, we will not quit fighting. We're Texans, we're Americans, and we're not quitting.
So now you know why Trump supports him. It makes sense. But why Texas would support him makes no sense to me. Ken Paxton is the most crooked, repulsive, and disgusting Republican candidate running in this 2026 election cycle. And that's saying a lot when you look at the other awful Republican candidates. But Paxton shouldn't be allowed near a school board, let alone the United States Senate. He's just not fit for office. But he is fit for MAGA. He is the embodiment of MAGA and everything that's wrong with it.